In August 2020, after my 2 week vacation in France, when I returned to the United States, I had trouble answering when friends asked me, "So, Tim, how was your vacation?" The answer that had served me so well in the past, "Great, thanks," now did not seem to do justice to the question, because with my French passport I was one of the few Americans able to vacation in France that summer. Yet, unlike the hotel bathroom clothesline, on which my wife strung up our masks to dry, no yarn seemed to tie together memories of walks around the streets of Marseille, an afternoon hike in nearby gorges, a forest fire burning ominously in the distance, empty airports, the outdoor chamber music festival of Salon de Provence, the vineyards of Burgundy sweltering under a heat wave, the sunlight of Paris piercing through the stained glass of the Sainte-Chapelle, dinner with friends across from the facade of the historic Hospice de Beaune. These destinations, though they remained like old friends, wonderfully unchanged, did not seem to be connected by any obvious thread. Perhaps it was not its destinations that brought this vacation together, but the interludes in between, moments when, no longer a lockdown, I felt transported to another place. Like when, by happenstance, I opened the shade on the flight to Europe just when a new continent was approaching at sunrise. Or when I awoke on the long ride from Marseille to Dijon moments before the high-speed train passed by the familiar hillside of Vaugnes-Romanney. Having lived for so long in confinement, I was absorbed by simple movements like a moped zipping by, a bateau-mouche cruising down the river Seine, the steady pace of the Paris metro, the lights of the Eiffel Tower flickering outside to announce the arrival of our next dish, swimmers wading across our hotel pool in Provence, the escalator of the Du Courthouse in Batignolles. Like our courthouses back home, this one looked a bit deserted. But, like much of Paris, it was still on the move.
الماء مغسول. الماء مغسول.
For advance ticket purchasers, many of the city's museums were open, like the Louvre and the Pompidou Center, where, after lunch on the museum's top floor, I visited an exhibition of the artwork of Christo and Jeanne-Claude. Having just lived in lockdown, their art evoked life during a pandemic, with works like the early storefronts, draped and looking very closed, and the household objects wrapped in cloth. Even the room-size model for the later project to wrap the Pont Neuf evoked a mothballed city. Maybe Christo and Jeanne-Claude experienced every day as though living in a pandemic, amidst deserted surroundings, wrapped and in need of being reopened. In 1964, when Christo wrapped this nude statue in plastic, he probably intended to bring the gray surroundings to life. And when, with Jean-Claude, he persisted for decades, seeking and obtaining permission to wrap the oldest bridge in Paris in fabric, he likely intended to make the Pont Neuf look new again, as though it too could take a 2-week vacation. Christo died 2 months before this exhibition opened. Neither he nor Jean-Claude are alive. But just a few days after I returned to Washington, one of the storefronts resurfaced in my life when curator Anne Reeve observed in the Hirshhorn Museum's weekly newsletter that, during the pandemic, Christo's early work now feels almost eerily apt because it marks an unfortunate truth, how we often fail to take notice of our immediate surroundings and awake to something's value only after it's gone. It is uncanny how life during a pandemic draws attention to things that might not otherwise have registered. The way, on a street in Marseille, I somehow noticed the inscription beneath this small statue, which said that during the Great Plague of 1720, this man buried over 1,000 corpses. The Great Plague of 1720, I realized, was the last pandemic to hit Marseille until this year, 2020, exactly 300 years later. Perhaps the answer to my friends who ask, "So, Tim, how was your vacation?" should be that during my 2-week bubble of a trip, I began to awake to things of value before they were gone.